Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Zirabello, producer and host on Bulgarian National TV. The Democrats' approval rating is the lowest of all time, which also means that, in fact, 20% of all of us are still living under a rock, either unaware what the party has become and what it stands for, or are blinded by unexplainable hatred for Trump. Now, knowing how the polls are working, it might be even lower than that. So, if the mutilation and sex reassignment of young children, late-term abortion of babies with beating hearts, drag queen shows for 5-year-olds, waste of billions of dollars of taxpayers' money for crazy sexually oriented programs all around the world, including trying to spend millions on sending condoms on the Gaza Strip, men competing in women's sports, including in boxing, literally not only beating up women in front of everybody, and instead of going to jail, actually getting medals for it, which is exactly what happened in the last Olympics. Insane open border policies and letting murderers and terrorists in our own neighborhoods. If all this insanity was not enough, now they once again are doing something that most of us, somewhat normal thinking people will find simply insane. Now they're proudly and openly defending Kilmer Abrego Garcia, a man from El Salvador who, according to 2 judges, is a criminal and a member of one of the most dangerous gangs in the world, MS13. And a guy that likes to beat up his wife, who in the past actually asked for a restraining order against him in court.
To fill out a protective order, I think it was in December, but I didn't show up to the court because his family washed my brain telling me that his dad was sick and not to do it. I called 911 from a disconnected phone. Now they took a long time to get to the house. It was probably 20-30 minutes. So I saw a neighbor walking his dog, and I opened the door and I was like, help. And then when he heard me, he grabbed me from my hair and then he slapped me. And then the neighbor, he didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to react. I have pictures of the evidence, all the bruises, because even on Wednesday, he hit me around 3 in the morning. He would just wake up and hit me. And then last Saturday for my daughter's birthday party, before I went to my daughter's birthday party, he slapped me 3 times. And then last week I did call the police. My sister called the police because he hit me in front of my sister.
This is a new face and a hero for the Democrats. But why? Why, a sane person would ask, why do the Democrats protect this thug? According to them, they're doing it to protect the law and the Constitution. But really, how dumb do you have to be to believe that? It has nothing to do with the law and the Constitution. It has everything to do with showing 21 million illegal immigrants that they will fight for them, no matter what. So that when those illegals are finally allowed to vote, they will vote only one way, Democrat. And in turn, the extreme left can take over the country once again, subsequently destroying it and destroying the entire planet. As we all saw what the world had turned into during the last 4 years under Joe, and I think the most incompetent administration of all time. Yes, they want us back in the gender tampons in boys' restrooms, sex operations for children, or simply put on, they want us back on the insane train. They didn't learn anything from their miserable and total loss in the last election, and that most of us, including the gay community, are sick and tired of ideologies that no normal thinking person can possibly come up with. It is amazing that when you think that they have reached the top or the bottom of jaw-dropping craziness, they would come up with a whole new level of crazy. Defending an MS13 gang member of a gang that is involved in drugs and arms trafficking, prostitution, human trafficking, and tries to recruit children as early as elementary schools into a life of crime, prison, and destruction. Of course, most of us somewhat normal thinking people will find this absurd and absolute madness. But according to them, by defending Garcia, they're defending the Constitution, which was, by the way, kind of ignored by them in the previous election, shoving Joe in the White House. They justify this madness because, according to them, Garcia was not extradited in a legal way, forgetting that he's a criminal and not mentioning that in the past He has been denied legal residence in the United States not once, but twice by federal judges. But things got super interesting when the crazy senator from Maryland, Chris Van Hollen, in his pathetic attempt for attention and TV time, I suppose for the purpose of becoming a governor or, God forbid, president, went to El Salvador in an attempt to get the bandit out of prison and drag him back to the United States on a first-class ticket paid by you, the taxpayers. And if that's not shocking enough, this very same Maryland senator couldn't bother to phone his own constituent, Patty Morin, after her daughter, Rachel Morin, was brutally murdered and raped by illegal alien. On up until they opened the border, it was believed to be a safe Maryland hiking trail. The poor mother, who has experienced the worst nightmare a mother can experience, explains how the monster raped her daughter and how by slamming her body into the wall in a tunnel, he left a bloody outline of a silhouette of a corpse while still raping her. A monster. I don't know about you, but I cannot watch the following video without absolute outrage and tears filling up my eyes.
Layer upon layer upon layer of evidence against the accused, an illegal immigrant from El Salvador. And the things that we thought, well, maybe this might have happened, we didn't know. But when we were at the trial, we got all the puzzle pieces. And I want to share some of those things with you. You know that Rachel's a 37-year-old mother. She has 5 children. We've walked the trail for the last 25 years that we've lived in Maryland. It's a safe place for our family. It's where we go to get a little bit of New England, because that's where we're from, New England. When she went on that trail that day, she was not planning on dying. She wasn't planning on walking to her death. She was planning on going to the grocery store with her girls afterwards. Victor Martinez, he waited for her. He waited for her to come closer. He saw her. He saw that there was nobody around. He attacked her. He dragged her 150 feet, blood gushing from her head. It left a 150-foot trail of her blood to the culverts, where he picked her up, he threw her against the wall of the tunnel, and he raped her. But before he did that, he stopped on that trail, and rocks, still stained with her blood, he used them to hammer her head against those rocks. They say at least 20 times they could count the cuts in her head. They said that when they did the autopsy, and I've seen the pictures, there's a 6-inch square in the back of her head where the skull is shattered the way that you would crush an eggshell in pieces. 3/4 of her brain hemorrhaged. Her right and left side of her face bashed in. Her beautiful face bashed in. Her head bashed in. Broken bones, fractures. He takes and he drags her some more. He drags her through the thorn bushes. She has all the scrapes and cuts on her body. There wasn't 1 inch of her body that didn't have some kind of injury, whether it's bruising, broken bones, contusions, the scratches. She had a fractured rib, fractured nose, fractured skull. And then he takes her into the tunnel and he picks her up. He throws her against the wall. Blood is gushing from her head. Her hair is soaked in blood. And they showed us pictures of her body against the wall, outlined. The blood outlined her body. And you could see where the blood ran down around her as he was raping her. And then he threw her down and raped her some more. And then he strangled her because he didn't want her to be able to live to tell the story. They said that when they did the autopsy on her neck, that one of the things they do is they open up the neck and they look to see how far the injury is. And they went all the way down as far as an injury is possible, hemorrhaging in the muscles, because of how strong and violent the grip was around her. These are the kind of people that have no compulsion. Like, to them, this is nothing. And when he was sitting in the courtroom, he actually looked like he thought he was going to be set free. There was no remorse on his face at all. This person took my daughter so violently and so gruesomely and so graphically that they sealed the pictures, because I don't want my granddaughters to see these pictures. These are the kind of criminals President Trump wants to remove from our country. These are the kind of criminals that we need to remove from our country. We are American citizens. Why should we allow people like this, violent criminals that have no conscience at all, to murder our mothers, our sisters, our daughters? I don't understand why there's even any kind of problem with this. And it's not that it's political, like the left or the right, although I understand different parties have used it in the past. But we have to look at it as we are American citizens. We need to protect our families, our borders, our children. I don't care about politics. Well, I do, but I want to preserve life. And that's the only reason why I have taken and spoken about Rachel all this time.
An absolute and total nightmare. That if Joe Biden and the Democrats did not open the borders to bring potential voters for themselves, would have never, ever, ever happened. Imagine that. This monster destroyed not only the life of a beautiful young lady, but the lives of her relatives, children, and even the community she had peacefully lived in. I know that I will never forget the shock that I felt and still feel after hearing about this nightmare. Van Holland also couldn't find the time to call the family of another Maryland American citizen and voter, Kyla Hamilton.
I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl and named her Kayla Marie. She was a happy and easygoing baby. Even back then, she loved to smile and laugh. She always kept her friends close and never forgot anyone. She was kind, caring, thoughtful, and funny. She loved life and God. She showed the world that being yourself was okay, and you didn't have to follow everyone else. But sadly, on July 27th, 2022, I received the worst news that a parent doesn't want to hear, that my newly 20-year-old daughter, Kayla Hamilton, was murdered in her own room and left on the floor like trash. She left behind a mother who loved her, a stepfather, a brother, a younger sister, grandparents, and lots of aunts, uncles, and cousins. At first, we knew very little details of the murder until an arrest was made. The details we learned broke us. At the end of March of 2022, Kayla's murderer was apprehended by Border Patrol crossing illegally into the U.S. at the southwest border in Rio Grande City, Texas. I am not sure if he was vetted or not, but he was a 16-year-old known gang member affiliated with MS13 in El Salvador. The MS13 motto is kill, rape, and control. He entered the country as an unoccupied alien child. As a UAC, the murderer was allowed to go live with his aunt in Frederick, Maryland. She was also an illegal immigrant.
And in a letter to a priest in El Salvador, Martinez said he killed 4 other people and committed 2 additional rapes. What an evil human garbage that was allowed to come into this country. I wonder how many of these so-called Democrats and protectors of the law in the Constitution, how many of them would defend Garcia if anything like this has happened to them personally, to their sister, daughter, or granddaughter? This is blood and horror on the hands of the Democrats that for 4 years were telling us that the borders are safe and secure. So, no time for real victims, but the crappy senator had all the time in the world for his taxpayer-paid trip to El Salvador to meet with love and have a cocktail with a deported female beater. And the left media did his part as usual. The MS13 gang member got well over 130 minutes on TV while barely mentioning Rachel Morin or Kyla Hamilton. An absolute proof on whose side is the corrupt mainstream media on. And to prove my earlier point, just a few weeks ago, 208 Democrats voted to make sure that all illegal immigrants have the right to vote, which is just beyond the wildest imagination. And here are the pictures on the White House lawn of the deported by the new administration murderers, pedophiles, rapists, and people that are simply waste of space on the planet. And in the end, I like to say that Trump should not only send every single illegal back, but he should also have the countries that let them out of their prisons and mental institutions pay for their trip back to wherever the hell they came from. Because how is it different letting a crazy criminal to come to the United States on purpose, different from, let's say, sending troops and attacking this great nation? It is act of war, and they should not get away with that. But the Democrats claim that if the Trump administration can do this with Garcia, they could do it with all of us who happen to be American citizens. Well, this is absolute and total stupidity, designed to scare dumb people and to spread panic among all of us. But here's the million-dollar question. If the Democrats really were such a great and constructive-minded party, why their efforts are applied towards illegal migrants, sexual perverts, criminals, and lunatics? Why they don't just try to make life better and take care of normal, law-abiding, and hard-working people? Why? Why? Because they know that no sane and sober-minded person would agree with 90% of their shocking views and methods. I also believe that the damage is done. And there is no way, no matter how capable Trump or any president after him is, there is no way that anyone will manage to catch and deport God knows how many thousands of criminals illegally entered under Joe, including known terrorists. And you have to be kind of dumb not to believe that they will cause damage here, and the question is not if, but when, especially the terrorists. The Democrat imposed an unnecessary damage to the greatest country and one of the greatest nations in the world can never be completely fixed and repaired. We can only hope and pray. I know I do.